presents Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdock.
Welcome back, and we're in the third segment here of Love, Hope, and Faith. And before we continue with our interview, I want to direct you to the Love, Hope, and Faith with Heather Murdock Facebook page. There you can find out all the other programs that have been on, and you may find a story that you relate with. Or you can go to heathermurdock.com, and you can find my blog. I love to write and share my faith journey there. Or you can also catch other programs as well. So there are two ways to catch up on Love, Hope, and Faith, and I'll be putting your segment there too. So yeah, if someone missed it, they get to see it. So I want to find out about your story. I want the viewers to hear. So tell us about your life.
Okay.
And take it way back.
All right. It's funny. I meet with a therapist. I started going to therapy a little over a year ago or so. And we sat down and she said, so tell me about your past. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your childhood. And I said, it was wonderful. It was great. And as I started to unfold the story, a few minutes into it, she said, well, wait a minute. You're describing something that doesn't sound so wonderful. And so I sat there and I thought, wow, it's and it was. I have a loving family. I have a beautiful family and stuff, and I have mom, dad, 3 siblings. We grew up in the middle of the street. Everybody played at our house. It was on the outside. It was beautiful, and there was a lot of love and stuff, and cousins and things, and we were blessed in that way. But like a lot of families, I think in today's day, there's challenges and there's dysfunction. There's dysfunctionality. So there was alcoholism, there was abuse, there was those kinds of things, and I put those things off on the shelf. And so when she asked me about my childhood, I described it as something that was beautiful.
Right.
And it was, but there were some things that were left out there. And so walking through that with her, I've been able to go back and take a look at some of those things and to realize what they, look at them, see what they are, and really came to understand why I drank. And why I started to drink. So, I had a great childhood. I was, and it was, I went to a nice school, lived in a nice neighborhood. I never went without anything. My parents provided, great siblings, good vacations, things like that. And
you had all the stuff.
Had all the stuff, and then when I got to, unfortunately, in my testimony and doing some work in the last couple of years, I realized that at about the age of 15, 16, that I really didn't know my path, and there was a lot of confusion. And I remember going to church, and church was a confusing place for me. And I went to catechism, and the people who taught me, there was a wide variation of what that was supposed to look like, and all of a sudden at that age feeling like I didn't fit in, or that I didn't measure up, or that I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And then the kid down the street says, hey, why don't you try this? And I tried that, and then I tried this, and whether it was taking a little bit of marijuana or smoking marijuana or sipping beer or so, that really changed the way I felt. And it took away a lot of those insecurities and pains and things that had been there. And as that path gets going, those things started to work really well. And they really took away some of that insecurity or fear or so. When I went to school, it was a really odd time in our school system. It was Proposition 13, and a lot of people were starting to get on one side or the other of education. And so when I was in my freshman year of high school, you didn't have to show up. You didn't really have to participate or show up.
Wow.
Teachers were on one side, parents were on another side. The law was changing, the funding was changing. I remember getting an A for a class I never even went to.
Oh wow!
And so it was. I could sit back and look and think, what's the path here for me? And having such a huge ego and a lot of confidence, and then a lot of insecurities as well, and mixing those, put them all in a bowl and mix them together with some drugs and alcohol, the path was really curvy, crooked, crazy. So as we fast forward and we go on this path, I take this path for from 15 to 30, and the drugs and alcohol had led me down the scale, and I had gotten to a point that my last drink was pretty ugly. It started in the morning. I prayed that this day would be different, and I wouldn't drink this day, only to find myself in a situation, hours later in the afternoon, of when the boss came by and asked me to have a drink. I said, "Oh, absolutely." And I really.
So you prayed that morning, please
And
don't
I
let me
really,
drink.
and I said a prayer. I wasn't one that prayed. I wasn't one that even believed in God, really.
Didn't have a relationship with
No,
God
I
at
didn't
that
have a
point, yeah.
relationship. I mean, how could I have a, God was the problem.
Yeah.
I had gone so far down the scale that the problem was God.
Did you feel like he should have done something? Do you feel like he should have showed up
Looking
in your life
back,
differently?
not then, but looking
Yeah.
back, yeah,
Yeah.
probably, angry at God.
Yeah.
So,
If you feel like, I'm sorry not to interrupt
Yeah.
you, but because you said earlier on that did you feel like you didn't measure up?
yeah.
And so then you become angry. It's like, oh, I'll show you. I measure up just fine.
Yeah.
The pride kicks in.
Exactly, and I
yeah.
really thought that many years that I had this attitude of I don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't care if I hurt you. I don't care if I hurt anybody. I don't care about authority. The drugs and alcohol had kind of skewed distorted my way
Yeah,
of thinking.
yeah.
And so now here I am, and I'm in this situation, and I find myself drinking again that afternoon, and the drink takes me all the way down into the gutter. Takes me very far down the scale.
But you had a good job at this point, and you still had all this stuff.
The outside couldn't have looked
good.
any better. Hips looking cool. White
Yeah.
shirt, tie, sports car, cell phone. Back in '93, I was making good money. I worked at a company, had 250 employees. I was with the boss drinking in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't have been any better.
Right.
30 years old, pack of Marlboros, money in my pocket, just
Yeah. Were you married?
top on the world. I was married.
Did you have kids?
I did not have any. No, we did not have a kid at that time. And so, and what happened is that prayer was somewhat answered. So I found myself that day at the bar drinking. Went back into the bathroom a couple hours later to leave. Washed my hands. Caught myself in the mirror, and it was interesting. In the morning, I prayed that I wouldn't drink that day, and that they would be different. In the afternoon, the alcohol was speaking to me, and the pride and the ego, and I was thinking, wow, I've made it. I'm just like my grandfather. I'm just like my dad. I'm a big shot. I can come to the bar in the middle of the afternoon. I'm a man's man.
Man's man.
I'm
That's
on
right.
top of the
That's
world.
right.
I have got it. But,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't long. It was the next morning, and some things happened that day, and those events went all night long. And I found myself back in front of the mirror the next morning, getting ready for work. And my wife at the time had left, and that night was the story. We don't have enough time to go through all the details of that night, but it was.
You didn't come home that night, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was late, and 4:00. Incomprehensible demoralization, as the book talks about, and.
And your wife, she had just had enough of that, right?
Yeah. Sick and tired of being sick and tired. And
I'm sorry, because I love what you said. I think this is relatable. You said in your testimony that your wife, is this a part where she said you're the problem?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you said.
Yeah, I said I don't know what's your problem.
You said what's your problem? You said I've got it made. You're just jealous because I'm out there having a good time and you're home and you don't want that. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's like
And
classic
she looked at me and
scene
said,
between
of course. I mean, we all think that,
dysfunctional
right? When
couple.
someone challenges us with anything,
Yeah, and our
we
pride.
look at them like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
You're just jealous, or you're envy, or.
Yeah.
And she said, you're the problem and you don't see it, and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I went to bed, and I woke up an hour and a half later. I had to go to work, and now I'm back in front of that mirror 24 hours later. And something had changed. It had been coming a long time, and it had changed. And a couple hours later, I went. I had a job I could check in and check out, and so I went to work, and I signed in, and hey, I got to go downtown for a meeting, and I found myself out on I-5, Highway 5, out by Sacramento Airport, and I was in my car at the end of the runway there, or at the end of the off ramp, and the thought was, I got it figured out. I'm just going to take my car down I-5. And I'll go right into right off the off ramp into the American River. I can get my car up to well over 100 miles an hour, and that would do it. And it just made so much sense. It was so clear that it would take away all of the shame, the guilt, the pain, the remorse, the fear, all of those things. That it would just end it.
Right.
It was either that or to go home and take all the money I could and run away.
Right.
And that's what I'd done my whole life. And so I'm thinking maybe I'll go to Texas, and I didn't know anybody in Texas. It seemed like a good place to run to.
Big place.
Yeah, just run there, far enough away, nobody will find me there. And so I'm sitting in the car and I'm just crying, and I'm at the end of the road. And when we get to the end of the road, I've met people there who have committed suicide. I was with a guy one night, he committed suicide. I was with him a few hours before. And I shared my story, and he just couldn't get to the next step. And that day and sitting in the car, I'm sitting there crying, and I had a little book in my glove box, and I pulled this book out. For why, I don't know. My dad gave it to me years before, and I carried it in my glove box. It's a 24-hour day book. And in the front of it, I pulled it out. And
what's a 24-hour day book?
It's a daily devotion a daily prayer of that day. So you read today, and you have a little prayer and a thought for the day and meditation of the day, and it's a Hazelton book. And so in the front of it says, "Dear Tom, I hope this book will help you like it's helped me." And
wow, the timing of that, huh?
Yeah, and I'm sitting there and I'm crying, and I'm at that spot, where I cannot continue on the path that I've walked, but I'm too afraid to take a new path.
Yeah. Yes. The crossroads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm asking God for help. I don't even know God really. I don't have a relationship with God. I'm overwhelmed with fear, and so I looked at this. And I had one of those cell phones at the time. It was 1993. I had a big cell phone.
The big brick.
The big bag.
Bag phone.
I grabbed the cell phone and I called the AA hotline. And I said, "Hey, I'm stuck. I'm out here on the highway and I need help."
Wow.
And, I went to my first meeting that day. It was the last day I took a drink.
That was 1993?
1993. It was June 29th. It was June 29th was my last drink. This is now June 30th that morning, and that's my that's
your date.
That's the date I had my last drink. I still found it necessary to smoke a little weed once in a while to take the bumps in the road out of that, and then I learned about clean and sober.
Being clean, yeah.
And February 5th in '94 was the day I changed my sobriety date.
Totally clean. Yeah.
I'm totally clean, and that's really when I started a relationship. Trying to search for a relationship with a higher power.
Amen.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You're watching Amador County's local television network,